Doesn't seem to be anything here around how to do virtual tacos. Oh. Hey friends, my name is Morten. I work at Umbraco on the Cloud Platform team and on the Umbraco Heartcore team. Let's dive into the presentation. For the next 30 minutes, I'll be talking about the future of Umbraco Cloud and what you can expect to see from us within the next 12 months. We'll start off by looking at the features which are just around the corner for the now part. From there, we'll move on to the next set of features which are expected within the next 6 months. Finally, we'll look a bit further at features which are expected within the next 12 months, so somewhat in the future, but all still within reach. Before I start talking about the upcoming features, I want to spend a minute on our Cloud vNext project, also known as the new cloud infrastructure, which many of these upcoming features are based on or relate to in some way, shape or form. For the past 5 months, we've been working hard to build and integrate with a completely new platform. The initial focus was on enabling the migration of existing cloud projects to this new, more stable and performant platform on Azure, utilizing Azure App Service for website hosting. Now, with the migration progressing nicely, we have had more time to work on ensuring full compatibility in the Umbraco Cloud portal for all existing features. There's a huge focus on making the transition to the new cloud platform as smooth as possible, so ideally you won't notice any difference except that the platform is fantastic, because all existing features will work the same regardless of the underlying platform. One thing you will notice is the internal host names. Check out the region part of the URL on these slides and screenshot, but more on that later. Also the Git URL, which we will enable very soon. With this new Git URL, you'll get the benefits of having all your projects under one domain, which means access will be a lot easier to manage. To some extent, it's very similar to what you have today on GitHub. Now that projects are being migrated to the new platform, it makes sense to start creating new projects on the new platform as well. So very soon, when you create a new project through the Umbraco Cloud portal, it will be hosted on the new platform. We expect this change to happen within the next month, so during June. From there, we will start enabling Uno and Hardcore projects on top of the new platform as well. Speaking of Hardcore, when we start creating Hardcore projects on the new platform, it will be with an updated version, which includes the blog editor. The blog editor will be supported both through the REST API and GraphQL. And from a querying perspective, you will have 2 levels, as you get access to both content and settings. For Umbraco Uno, I can mention that it will be upgraded to the latest version of Umbraco as part of making it available on the new platform. When talking about new and updated projects on Umbraco Cloud, we also need to talk about Umbraco 9, currently set to launch in August. When Umbraco 9 is released, it will of course also be available on Umbraco Cloud from day 1. Since the .NET Core version of Umbraco is fairly different than the .NET Framework version of Umbraco 8, we've had to make certain changes in how the project is stored and deployed to Umbraco Cloud. This means that for Umbraco 9, we will have a CS project file in the Git repository where all dependencies are installed as NuGet packages. So the content of the Umbraco Cloud Git repository will correspond to what you end up with when you run the .NET New Umbraco from the command line using the Umbraco 9 templates. When deploying changes to Umbraco Cloud, the project will be built and then published to the web root using a .deployment convention in the Git repository, as you can see in the screenshot on the slides. Given that all of these dependencies are made available through NuGet for Umbraco 9 projects running on cloud, we will do the same for existing dependencies for Umbraco 8, as they are essentially the same, just targeting a different .NET framework. Additionally, the blob storage provider that's available on Umbraco Cloud will be made open source, so everyone can use it regardless of them hosting their websites on cloud or anywhere else. As long as they use Azure Blob Storage, they can use this blob storage provider. With an Umbraco 9 CS project file in the Git repository, running the website locally is as easy as typing .NET run from the command line from within the cloned repository folder. Visual Studio is not required, but you can add the CS project file to an existing or new Visual Studio solution if that's what you want. Okay, let's move on to the next set of features. We've been using Cloudflare for some time now. First off, together with Headless, for stuff like CDN, image service, and APIs. Earlier this year, we expanded our partnership with Cloudflare to also cover DNS and certificates for all of Umbraco Cloud. Today, all certificates are issued by Cloudflare and all traffic routed through Cloudflare's extensive global network. Our new Cloudflare setup has also been an important part in ensuring that the migration from the old to the new platform can be done as seamlessly as possible without any downtime, simply by changing the origin for a custom hostname. Through this new partnership with Cloudflare, we are also able to add new caching and security features to Umbraco Cloud, which means that you get even more features available out of the box. Earlier this year, we talked with some of our Umbraco MVPs about what they would expect from Umbraco Cloud in terms of caching features and how they would want to work with it, as well as what they found useful. This has helped us shape the feature and prioritize what needs to be included. For caching, it will be possible to enable and disable caching on a per hostname basis, which might be useful during development or other scenarios with frequent changes being made. So caching can be disabled for development hostnames. It will be possible to set the cache duration, which will vary from plan to plan. You can turn on auto-minify for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript with the click of a button. This means that these types of static assets will be minified and cached in Cloudflare's content delivery network. And being able to purge the cache from within the Umbraco Cloud portal is of course a must, so you get full control. Additionally, we'll be adding a set of security and performance related features. Also on a per hostname basis, it will be possible to enable or disable TLS 1.3. For pro projects, it will be possible to limit the cipher suites used on a custom hostname. It will be possible to turn on Scrape Shield, which is a way to protect content on your website by doing email obfuscation, hot link protection, and hide content from suspicious visitors. Finally, it will be possible to enable or disable HTTP 2 or HTTP 3. HTTP is natively supported on Azure, so there will be an extra benefit there in terms of performance. Umbraco Heartcore has always had a CDN for media with an image service built in, which allowed you to crop, resize, and do all of the same things that you're used to doing with Image Processor and Umbraco. We want to bring these same capabilities to regular Umbraco Cloud and Uno projects, so all cloud projects can enjoy the benefits of having CDN for the Umbraco media library. And to this, I can add that because all of the Umbraco Cloud projects save their media library to blob storage, the CDN can work on top of this, so the serving of media can be done outside of the website itself because it goes directly to the blob storage account. In the later stage for Heartcore, we have persisted queries, which will allow you to save GraphQL queries and restrict the use to only these saved queries. You can of course still pass in your parameters, but in terms of constructing queries, you can use it as a way to restrict what can be executed against the GraphQL API for your project. Each of the saved queries will get a hash of the payload, which will be sent along with your parameters. So if you have relatively large queries, this can be used as a way to minimize what you send across the wire. We also expect that persisted queries will make it into the back office, so you can save your queries and work with them as a team, so the developers in your team can get access to the queries within the GraphQL playground of the back office in Umbraco Heartcore. Let's have a look at another exciting feature coming up, something that's high on our priority list, and something that we're very much looking forward to enabling. So today, Umbraco Cloud is only available in Western Europe. And that's something that we've been wanting to improve for some time now, and something that will be much easier for us to do once we move to a new infrastructure. So if you take a simplified overview of Umbraco Cloud as it is today, we have a whole bunch of internal services which does things like handle upgrades, do deployments, notifications in the portal, provisioning all of the Umbraco Cloud sites and environments that you have. So one of the first things that we're changing is, of course, the move to Azure App Service for hosting the Umbraco Cloud sites. And then we need to reposition our resources and internal services. So that'll look something like this. So basically isolate them so we can deploy them into different regions. So with this, we have essentially a EU West deployment, and we can take that and deploy it into the US region as well. So we end up with a regional setup that looks something like this. Again, a very simplified overview, but these are some of the changes that we work on in order to enable this. The only thing that you will see from the Umbraco Cloud perspective in the portal is that you will now have a drop down where you can select the region. So you can choose between EU West and US East, which will be the first region outside of Europe. So the setup looking something like this, where each of the regions are totally isolated from each other. So that means that if you create an Umbraco Cloud site in the US, then both the website itself and the database, the Git repository, all lives within the US region. All of the services that surround that cloud site also live within that region and are isolated from everything else. In the future, we want to continue to expand upon the regions in which Umbraco Cloud is available, thereby bringing Umbraco Cloud closer to you and your customers. So while it might not light up like this map all around the world from day one, we want to continue expanding on the regions so that it goes further than the EU and the US. But we'll have more about that in the future. So let's look at some of the features which are coming later. These features are something that I'm personally very excited about because it's all about developer experience. It's something that we've wanted to do for a while now, but has been complicated by our previous platform. As we move to a new platform, these are features that we can now start enabling and have looked at various ways of how we can improve something like continuous integration, continuous delivery, and connecting your own Git repository to Umbraco Cloud, something that many developers already do, but in a fairly cumbersome way. So one can imagine a setup like this, where your developers are working locally with their own Git repository, which then connects through GitHub Actions or Azure pipelines to do the build, and then connect into Umbraco Cloud. So this is something we want to provide as an integrated way of working with Umbraco Cloud. One could imagine a scenario like this, where we take the code from your local repository to the cloud, like this. The developers push their code to the local repository, which then goes into something like GitHub or Azure repos, which is then built, and on the output of that is then a deployment package or deployment artifacts, which we need to deploy into Umbraco Cloud. So as an integrated way, we can bring that package into your cloud site and deploy it as part of this integration. Now, this setup is something you can do yourself today, but we want to provide it as an integrated plug and play kind of approach. And in addition to this, we want to also be able to go the other way, so from cloud to local. So when working with cloud, you often have metadata in one or more of your environments that you need to bring down to your local repository so your developers can work with it locally as well. So imagine that each of your environments are updated with metadata that could be document types that are changed those document types then needs to flow back down into the Git repository, which is hosted in your own GitHub account or in your Azure DevOps repositories. Now from there, we need to get it down to the developers so they can work with it locally as well. And the ideal scenario should of course be that they end up with the metadata in each of their workstations where they work with the Umbraco website locally. We imagine that these metadata changes could be made discoverable through the Umbraco backoffice. So looking at the dashboard from within Umbraco, you can see that on the development environment, there are changes available. And getting these changes down to your local workstation could be done either through a pull request, so something you issue yourself from the back office, saying that these two changes that that have been made in the development environment is something I want to issue a pull request for from the back office. Or as a way of working with it from within the back office, simply download it into your local workstation and add it to Git yourself. So there'll be various ways of working with this, which should fit any workflow. Another feature we have coming up in the later stage is flexible environments and being able to create the environments you need when you need them. So in Umbraco Cloud today, all projects start with a live environment as a minimum. Currently, the Git repositories are all local Git repositories. And then you can, depending on your cloud plan, create a development environment, add a staging environment, maybe. In terms of flexibility and the future, we want to open up for, as I mentioned before, with Git repositories, that you can bring your own Git repositories on the environments in your Umbraco Cloud project. And in terms of flexibility, being able to add in another environment wherever you need it. So that could be something like a pre-production environment. One could also imagine scenarios where you need or have feature branches that you would like to spin up an environment for as well. So that's also something that we're looking into for flexible environments. So imagine that you have a pull request on your GitHub account and you want to spin up an environment to test out that feature branch before you merge it into your master branch. So with feature branches, that's something where we can spin up an environment, make that available to you, separate it from the other environments in your project, but still within your project. The deployment flow of all of this would still be from development across staging and the other environments to live, but with a lot more flexibility than what we've had before. So adding in environments as you see fit with a lot more flexibility and having disposable environments for feature branch purposes. So this is pretty much what I wanted to share with you today. I very much welcome any feedback that you might have, any input, if you want to try out some of these things before we launch them for real. Then you're more than welcome to reach out to me to gain access to private previews. If you have input, suggestions, also feedback is always welcome. So please feel free to reach out to me via email, morten@umbraco.com, or find me on Twitter. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you found it useful.